we're gonna sit around and wait for our elected lawmakers to protect us from these religious zealots and these right-wing authoritarians, man, we have another thing coming. How many times do we need to be disappointed by them? I'm done with them. And personally, I don't speak for everyone in this network. I want to be clear. I'm speaking for myself. I'm done with them completely. The Democratic Party, every single one of them, that includes the squad, I don't care anymore. They have not delivered. They have not delivered. I'm done. Okay. It's time to organize, create organizations that get women and get people in this country what they need. People who are willing to pick up the slack for these disgusting, feckless, corrupt politicians. That's what we need to focus on.
If it's such a nice day. Well, I'm in the house. I just come back from picking up some stuff for my cat. We took her up to Holton, as I said yesterday. And let me tell you something here. It cost me $80 on top of $2 and change in gas to go to Holton and to come back. When I came back, I had to fill up, put enough gas in there. So it took all of that money that I spent on gas going up there and back, and I had to gas up when I got home. 80 freak. Of course, now let me tell you, I'm driving a pickup, okay, a 2006 Sierra, 1.5 tons, okay. It's got a V8 engine in it. So for those guys out there that watch this and understand mechanics, you know that those kind of trucks aren't easy on gas anyway. But that's what I had to pay to go to Holton and back, and I don't know how, I can't remember. I think it's like 70, 80 miles from here going north. You can look on the map if you want to. But yeah, it's just shy of 100 miles. So yeah, I had to go all the way up there, and that's what it cost me in gas. And of course, I bought some lunch because it took about 6 hours, because when we got to that clinic, I got there at 9:15 a.m. I left here at 6, and I got there at 9:15 because I had to pick up Melissa along the way. And they had a whole bunch of other people there with cats and dogs. And so Smokey had to wait in line, as it were, to get her turn. So they told us it would be about 2 o'clock before she would be done and ready to pick up. And they were just about right. I mean, it was 15 after 2, and we got a call, come get her. But yeah, that place was full. They were swamped. But yeah, we took her up there, and then we went around a little bit in Holton, just walking around town. Melissa was taking pictures of things, and we had lunch, and I don't know, we just killed as much time as we could while we were in town. And then 2 o'clock, 2:15, you know, come and get her. And so we got in the truck, went back down there and got her, and we came home. I didn't get back till about 6 o'clock in the evening. I was tired. Smokey was tired. She slept most of the way, the poor thing. She had 3 shots given to her, plus, you know, being spayed. So I brought her home, opened the cage, and she was like, you know, like she was drunk walking out of the cage, and she kind of laid down, and then had a little bit of water and food. I just gave her just a tiny bit because they said that, you know, it might make her upset, her stomach upset, if I gave her too much. So I just gave her a little bit, and she ate it and didn't get sick. And so it worked out okay. Today she's a little more active. She's been kind of licking where they did the surgery thing on her, because it itches a little bit. So I went out and bought some little it looks like eye drops, but you put 2 drops in her water or food, and that's supposed to help with the itching, I guess. Because, you know, you don't want a cat to just keep licking and licking and licking where they did it, because, you know, the wound can't really heal if the cat's constantly licking, you know. So I did that for her, and you know, so I got to kind of keep an eye on her to make sure that make sure she's okay. So it'll take. They said it's going to take about 10 to 14 days before she's 100%. So I got to watch her for a while, and so even it's a nice day, but I really can't go too far for too long. I want to be around, and, you know, just to make sure that nothing happens to her, because they don't want her jumping up on stuff, and you could see behind me how hard that's going to be to keep her from jumping on things. Okay, so that's another part of why I'm, you know, kind of staying close to home today, because I don't want her to jump up on Michael Myers or the chair, or on the back of the chair, or on the window, you know, or try to climb the screen to the window. You know what I'm saying? The things that she normally does, which I can tell she wants to do, because she's looking up at things, and she's like, you could see her get her body getting ready to jump, but I don't think she really wants to, because she doesn't feel good. So I don't want her to try to risk it and fall, you know. So I gotta be here to watch her. So anyway, I don't know if you guys know about this. Maybe you do. I'm just assuming you don't. But the judge on the Marjorie Taylor Greene eligibility hearing ruled in her favor. It said she's fine to run for her seat. And I'm like, okay. So apparently this judge is just as a wackadoodle as Marjorie Taylor Greene is. And, you know, of course, this is in Georgia, so I can't see how really that wouldn't have gone the other way, but it's really going to be up to the voters to decide whether they want her in there or not, okay? So either she runs and she's not voted in, or what have you. But if the judge wants to say she's fine, then that would explain a lot as to why the television shows that we watch today are so friggin' out there and ridiculous. Okay, because maybe that's what sells today, is being stupid and ridiculous, and, you know, maybe people just feel comfortable being around the stupid. I mean, it certainly explains why so many people are flocking around Trump still, even after everything we know that he'd done as president and after he was president. Okay, people still think that he's A-OK, you know, to be a Republican bigwig. All right. And it seems Marjorie Taylor Greene is up there with Trump pretty much. So it doesn't really, you know, I don't know if it would really even matter if we tried to challenge Boebert on the same thing. You know, they might think she's just as sane as the other one, you know. If they're sane, then I'm insane, because, you know, I don't think like they do. All right, I don't think like they do, and maybe there's very few of us left that do, that understands sense, you know, more than anything else. And yeah, you can see Smokey there behind me there on the chair again, licking. She's still licking herself there where the thing was. I guess the medicine hasn't kicked in yet. But anyway, yeah, so it was like very disappointing to see that in the news. But I can't say I was like really that surprised. I was hoping. You see, that's what it is when you just get one person to make a decision on something like this, okay? You don't know where that person's going to land on the line. It's different when you have like a jury or something like that, or more than one, because then there's debate. Then there's debate. But a judge can already make up his or her mind beforehand and just stick with that. You know what I'm saying? So who's to say that he didn't already go into this thing, you know, thinking I'm gonna clear her no matter what they come up with, okay? How fair is that? You know, how fair is that? So, let me see here. Yeah, so pretty much that's, you know, I got the story here in front of me, but I don't know if it's even worth reading the whole damn thing. But if you want to read it, it's from the AP, written by Kate Brumback, and it says challenge over Marjorie Taylor Greene's eligibility fails. So if you want to read that, just type in that in the search engine, and it should take you to this article here from the AP, which, like I said, I don't really think it's worth reading, because what I just told you is pretty much all you need to know. Okay, anything else is just an excuse or an explanation as to why, you know, Marjorie gets off on this shit. So now there's all kinds of protests and stuff going on around the country over this Roe v. Wade opinion leak that got out this week. And no matter, people don't really give a shit how it got leaked out. I don't see that people really do. The only people that are making a stink about it are your Fox News idiots. Okay, they're the only ones that's you know, beating the war drums here over who did it. But as somebody said, you know, both the Democrats and the Republicans really had a motivation here to see this leaked. You can't really point to one side or the other as being the only reason it leaked. Both sides really wanted to see it leak. And why do I say that? Because, or why did they say that? I should say, not me, but why do they say that? Because they figure the Democrats would want it leaked in order to drum up this outrage. So that way, come November, they can use that outrage to get people to vote against the Republicans. Then on the other hand, the motivation the Republicans has is to leak this out to test the waters, as it were, to see how much of a reaction they would get if this become a campaign issue. Would they get people to side with them or against them? Okay, come November. So there was motivation enough on both sides to want to see this opinion leaked out from Politico to do this. And so the idea that one side is really upset over this kind of says to me that maybe it was the Republicans that wanted it leaked out, because they're the only ones that's really crying foul here. The other side isn't trying to look for someone to blame for this. They're just upset that they know about it now. But the Republicans are like, I want to know who did it. I want to know who did this. I want to, you know, they're looking for heads to roll. Okay, and they're accusing the Democrats of it. All right, the first thing is they're accusing Democrats of leaking it out. So again, going back to that thing I've been telling you about, every time the Republicans point at the other side for doing something wrong, it's usually them that's doing it. Okay, it's usually them that's doing it. So I'm saying it's probably the Republicans that saw to this information leaking out just to test the waters as to where they can expect to see a lot of anger and, you know, how bad that's going to affect voters. Because you got to think, Republican women are not going to be totally 100% for a total ban on abortion. Okay, they're not going to, you know, not every woman is going to be. Okay, so, you know, how many women are they going to lose in their party if they go down this thing? And that's probably who they're really looking at, is can they count on the women to vote Republican, or are they going to lose a lot of female Republicans if they put this issue out there as a campaign issue, you know? So so right now the country is still, you know, the fallout from what they heard is still out there. The anger, it's building. You know, you got this fight between American rights versus religious dogma, okay, which is really the only source of why people on the right wing say what they say about abortion, is that they get this from the Bible. But, you know, too often in the world, I'm not just going to say in the United States, but too often in the world, when people quote something from either the Bible or the Quran or something like that, doesn't it always seem like people try to understand what's said in a kind of a twisted way to sort of back up what they think is right? You know, too often we do that. You know, and And all I could say, is that there's a lot of misguided intention here from people who want to essentially attack a woman's right. I mean, how do they know? Okay, if they've read the Bible and it says flat out in there that abortion is wrong. I mean, there's the other side of the argument is that in the start of the Bible, I mean, it says that God breathed life into man. Okay, the first breath he took. You can interpret that as a baby isn't really alive until it takes its first breath. Okay, but that's not going to sit with Republicans. You can't. They're not going to look at that or even cogitate on that possibility. They got it in their head, pages and pages into the Bible from some area where they find something there, and it's probably the Old Testament, which they always go to because the Old Testament was very draconian in certain areas. Okay, and they use that as their basis for what has to be done today, and so this is how misguided attempts begin, is people read something, especially those that are very religious, and they use that, in a way to gain something, whether it's money, political power, whatever that may be, and it's constantly misused. I mean, we see this all the time in the world, a lot in the United States. I mean, take a look at what's that thing Tom Cruise is in there, the Scientology thing. I mean, look what that's founded on. Okay, some science fiction writer who come up with this stupid theory, and now it's become a religion. Why? Because they've been making a ton of money off of it. That's why. They've been selling Christ, his name is on the tip of my tongue. I can't even think of it now. Anyway, this writer who wrote the Scientology book here, or based on his work in a book, they're making a lot of money off of creating a religion from that. Okay, and a lot of wealthy people are plugged right into it. John Travolta, Tom Cruise. I could see another couple of people, but I don't remember their names. But there's a lot of people, influential people, who have, fans, right? And fans are going to be crazy enough to follow people like that, and through them they get more people joining their organization. And when you see people becoming religious over something like that, then it's not very hard to believe somebody misinterpreting the Bible and trying to take something from that and creating, draconian laws like no abortions or get rid of this, get rid of that, taking away people's privacy. Okay, you see things like that happen. So my thing is like, well, if people's basis for what they stand on comes from the Bible, then why do we think that's a credible stance to take? Given the history of how this stuff works, how many people follow misguided concepts, to their detriment in a lot of cases. I mean, look at with the Jim Jones and stuff like that. That's another religious thing that ended in disaster. People really believe this guy was the second coming practically, and he got them all to kill himself. Giving that history, and there's a lot of other histories that connected to that you can nail on. Given that, why do we give these people credibility when they talk about, in the Bible it says you can't have an abortion? Why is that even an issue in the Supreme Court? Okay? Church and state are supposed to be separate. So why are we bringing a church issue to the Supreme Court? That's their own issue. I mean, if we're going to let the Supreme Court deal with these religious matters, then that means it's no longer separate, right? That we have the government is putting its foot in religious dogma, putting their foot in, into taking away the autonomy of the religious world in our country, which is supposed to be allowed to exist no matter what your religion is, And I don't think that that's right. I think if you have a belief in something based in religion, fine, that's your belief. Okay, you can believe that all you want. I don't care. Just don't force your belief on me, her, him, the kids. Don't do that, because that's un-American. Then you're crossing the line from religion into government. All right? Church and state are supposed to be separate. Okay? And this is the reason why. This is even back then, the founders of this country understood what happens when you combine the two. You get chaos like this. You get fights breaking out, leading to wars. I mean, we see this happening on the other side of the world. We get religious wars fighting all the time, because they can't keep their government and their religion separate. In a lot of cases, the religion is the government, and they can't, that's the reason why this goes on. We're taking baby steps closer to becoming that in America. And the sacrifice, the thing that it costs us in the end, is our freedom, our privacy, And when that happens, you get a portion of our society, which in this case is all the women, are going to be less than a man. And that's not right either, because we fought hard. They fought hard to become equal to man in this country. And in a lot of ways, the fight still isn't over because of this. The fact that there's still people out there willing to put a barrier up between freedom and women just goes to show you that women still aren't considered equal to men, and that the fight for women's equality is still an ongoing thing. Even in the early 21st century, we are still having this fight because of a bunch of dirty old men who can't look at a woman other than being a sex object or a sex toy, and stop looking at them as people with brains who can contribute positively to our country, to our government. No matter how many times we put a woman in the seat of power, in their eyes, it's still a woman. It's still a woman, and we shouldn't really. That's why this judge probably ruled in Marjorie Taylor Greene's favor. It's like, well, she's a woman, she can't do any damage, so we'll let her stay. Let her stay, because, she'll just follow what we tell her to do anyway. How do we know that that's where this judge was coming from? That, he didn't see her as a threat because she's just a woman, If she was a man, would the decision be different? I don't know. If she was a man. But I can tell you, like I said, the fight for women's equality, because it isn't finished, is part of the reason why we're having this fight again over Roe v. Wade. And it's not going to end until that fight for women's equality ends. And then issues like Roe v. Wade are just going to become a non-sequitur. It's just going to be a non-issue. People are just going to say, well, naturally they have the right to have an abortion. They're a human being. When people stop looking at the women as women and say they're human beings, okay, then you'll see we've made progress. We've made progress. But there's still people alive in the world today that are still thinking that women are just things, objects, okay. And I think it would be wise that not only should we come down on defending abortion rights for women, we need to also step up women's rights altogether. The fight for women's equality in this country needs to step up too. So we have two issues that we need to bring back up into the streets to, let people know that, we're still here, we're still active, we're still watching, okay? We're still waiting, okay, for equality. And, they may have said it was over, but I don't think, it's not over. It isn't over. I don't think it is. So this is really a pivotal moment, I think, in American history, just like it was way back in the 70s when people were having these same kinds of arguments and protests then. We're revisiting that now. It's like the age of rehashing history. We didn't learn the first time around. We got to try and learn it again. And it's sad because most of these people you see pictures out protesting are a lot of the young people, the new generation, that are out there now doing this all over again. Okay? They don't remember a time when women couldn't have abortions, okay? But their mothers do. All right? They remember what it was like. And for those of you that are young and don't know, you should read the history books about what it was like before Roe v. Wade, how things were handled abortion-wise, and how many women died in the process of trying to do, a back alley abortion, or try to do it themselves, and how that really bungled up things and got people killed. So there was a reason we had to have that, not just because we're trying to save women from doing that, but it's a right. It's their body, for Christ's sake, And it's right to say, look, men, if you want, if it's okay for you to tell us we can't have babies, then it's okay for us to demand that you get vasectomies or stop masturbating. Okay? It's equal. I mean, equality means that women can challenge the men too, and that's what women need to do, is they need to push a movement just as loud, okay, as the men are doing for them. They need to get women together to push the other side of the envelope and find a religious basis in the Bible to back it up, so that way you can throw this religious dogma right back in their face, just to show them how stupid they are to go the way they are. That's what you got to do. You got to sling the mud right back at them. Okay, let's have a commercial break.
Dear CEO, what's it gonna take for you to do something? Yeah, do you even care?
Climate change affects all of us.
This is your chance to do something good.
If you could do just one simple thing to protect the people you love from getting sick, would you? If we all wear masks while we're in public, we can keep our families safe from the coronavirus. You've already made a lot of sacrifices, but this one is easy, and it will make a difference. It doesn't matter where you live or who you voted for. If you wear a mask, you will help save lives.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it. It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Okay, there is another story here from the National Review, written by Zachary Evans, that's entitled "Clarence Thomas Says Supreme Court Won't Be Bullied After Leak of Draft Opinion Overturning Roe." Well, what did you expect from a pig other than a grunt, you know? Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas warned that the court can't be bullied in comments at a judicial conference in Atlanta on Friday. Quote, "We are becoming addicted to wanting particular outcomes, not living with the outcomes we don't like," Thomas said, according to Reuters. Quote, "We can't be an institution that can be bullied into giving you just the outcomes you want. The events from earlier this week are a symptom of that." While Thomas did not explicitly discuss the leak of a draft opinion earlier this week that would overturn the decision in Roe v. Wade, the justice referenced, quote unquote, "unfortunate events of the past week" during his talk. The Washington Post noted the opinion, first reported by Politico and later confirmed as authentic by Chief Justice John Roberts, sparked condemnation from Democrats. A leftist group posted the home addresses of the 6 conservative Supreme Court justices online following the leak, calling for a walk-by protest outside the homes next week. Meanwhile, workers built fencing around the Supreme Court itself. Chief Justice Roberts directly condemned the leak during a meeting of the 11th Circuit Judicial Conference on Thursday. Quote, "A leak of this stature is absolutely appalling," unquote, Roberts told the conference. Quote, "If the person behind it thinks that it will affect our work, that's just foolish," unquote. So it's a short article here, but so yeah, like I said, this just illustrates the fallout from the opinion leak. And like I said before in my previous video, we have a right to know. These few people here on the Supreme Court are deciding the fates of over 100 million women in this country. Why shouldn't we know how they think? I mean, we were supposed to know how they think before they were even put on the bench in the first place, right? And some of these people lied about, you know, where they said they stood on it, okay? And so they got where they are, but now all of a sudden their tune is changing, and we have a right to know why their tune is changing, why they're thinking this way, why they want to overturn, you know, a standard that's been in this country for over 50 years, okay? Because back Roe versus Wade, the decision was like, you know, majority of it went to supporting Roe versus Wade. Was like only 2 opposed it on the bench, but nobody made such a big issue out of the final decision in the end, except inside the annals of the Republican Party, who vowed to go back at this at another day. Okay, and so here we are now, but. You know, the thing is like, you know, the reason the Supreme Court is looking at this is for the wrong reason, okay? They're looking at this to codify an action that was taken by a state governor, okay, to say it's okay to do this. But what they haven't done is this governor hasn't brought anything new to the table as to why he feels it's right to do this. The argument is still the same. And why should the Supreme Court look at something like this to review again unless some new element has occurred in the debate about abortion rights? Okay, it's like when a person is convicted of a crime and they're wrongfully convicted, they can't bring the case back to court unless some new evidence has been brought forward. Okay, only then can the case be reopened and reheard. So what new evidence did they bring into the table to this here that suggests that this governor isn't stepping on the toes of 50-year precedent here? You know, there isn't any. Okay, this is just a challenge, like I'm doing this now, challenge me. That's what he's doing. He's basically saying, I'm going to break the precedent, okay, and you're just going to have to decide whether I get away with it or not. You know, basically that's what they're asking the Supreme Court. That's not what they're supposed to be there for. They're supposed to, you know, if this governor says, well, I have another reason why we have to follow the abortion ban, and bring that argument to the Supreme Court and let them decide if that's a valid point to then overturn everything that's happened, okay? Only then can the Supreme Court listen to that. But nothing has been brought forward. All that's been brought forward is, oh, this governor's challenging it. What do you think about it? You know, we already heard from the Supreme Court in '73 what they thought about it, okay? And that still hasn't been challenged. Even now, even what's going on now at the Supreme Court is not the issue that we're supposed to be focused on, okay? It's not the issue. What's the issue here is this governor is implementing policy that's going to interfere in the privacy of others. That's the issue they're supposed to be looking at here, not whether or not they should overturn Roe v. Wade, but whether or not this governor is violating people's personal liberties here, okay? That's the issue they need to be talking about. But because the bench is mostly Republican, the Republicans are going to look at this as, oh boy, they sent me this issue, now we can really get what we want now. That's what they're looking at. They're totally blinded by their own lust for overturning Roe v. Wade, that they don't want to see the real argument here behind this, okay? So that's why this is happening, okay? This really isn't so much about, the Roe v. Wade issue. This is about what this governor did is stepping on people's privacy. And if the Supreme Court okays this, okay, not only does it mean that Roe v. Wade is okay to shit on, okay, but it also means that now the Republicans can come back and start telling people who they can marry, okay, and what a marriage is, and you know who you can't marry, who you can't sleep with. I mean, where's the end of this going to be? We already know a lot of the things Republicans don't like in this country. We hear it all the time on Fox News, okay? We hear it all the time from the right-wing demagogues out there, especially on the extreme right, the QAnon folks. We can take it from them, what they don't like, what Republicans are going to be shooting for next, you know? But like I said, this is something that is going to open the floodgates to a lot more fights down the road. And if we don't stand the ground now, that's going to be used against us later on in every other fight against privacy that comes up against the Republicans. Okay, so that's why it's important now to make it known that this is not right, and that's why the Democrats are asking people now to come out, you know, and vote on this November, you know, to keep them from gaining the advantage here and doing this. They can think what the hell they want on the right wing about abortion, pro or con, okay? That's their prerogative. But what they don't have the right to do is to shove their prerogative down everybody else's throats. That right there is un-American, okay? The majority of the country doesn't want that to happen. And we don't let the minority get to have a say in this country, which we're not supposed to, but it's for some reason, you know, we can't seem to get an upper hand on the right wing because they have it baked into the system that they can do what they want. Okay, so this other article from Rolling Stone, written by Hannah Murphy Winter, and it's entitled "Inside the Fight to Make Abortions by Mail Possible No Matter Which States You Live In." Earlier this week, Elisa Wells took an old empty prescription bottle and filled it with a handful of dried beans. She tucked the bottle into an envelope, put it in the mail, and sent it to a friend. It's a test she performed many times over the past several years, but one that's taken on a new urgency. Quote, "We're simulating sending abortion pills," unquote, explains Wells, the co-founder and co-director of Plan C, a team of abortion advocates that researches and shares creative methods for accessing abortion pills. She's retesting one of the methods that they recommend on their website, setting up a quote-unquote virtual mailbox, a sort of high-tech P.O. box through companies like U.S. Global Mail or iPostal One in a state like California, which allow patients to use telehealth to access mail-order abortion pills. When the package gets there, the mail services commonly used by people who are traveling or who don't want to use their home addresses for their business inform them that a package has arrived. The abortion seeker can then have the package forwarded to wherever they are, including to states that don't allow mail-order abortion care. Quote, there are always ways to get in between the lines, unquote, Wells says. Quote, to make things happen that aren't necessarily illegal, just creative, unquote. Since the Supreme Court's draft decision to overturn Roe v. Wade was leaked on Monday, demand for mail-order abortion pills has skyrocketed, and interest in the virtual mailbox method and the other creative workarounds that Plan C recommends in states that have restrictive abortion laws has understandably spiked. But while newly on the national stage, Wells has been preparing for this moment for years. She and other self-described renegades in the abortion access movement have spent the last decade finding ways to put abortion care in the hands of the abortion seeker. Quote, when we first started working on this in 2013, everybody thought we were a little bit crazy, unquote, she says. Most abortion advocates were focused on improving existing laws, but, quote, we started with the premise that these laws are only going to get worse, unquote. One option was to go international. Dutch abortion doctor Rebecca Gumpert, who in the early 2000s bought a boat and used it to bring pregnant people in countries that banned abortion into international waters to administer abortion care, established Aid Access, which uses European doctors and Indian pharmacies to provide Americans with abortion pills outside of the U.S. regulatory system. Stateside, the COVID-19 pandemic turned out to have an unexpected silver lining, the expansion of American telehealth, and with it, FDA approval to provide abortion pills by mail. Quote, awareness of medication, abortion, and these new ways that it can be used has grown among the medical community drastically in the past 2 years, unquote, Wells says. But despite the fact that medication abortions account for more than half of the abortions in the U.S., and the research that has shown that telehealth medication abortions have been overwhelmingly safe and effective, she has found that most clinicians are still reluctant to provide abortion care remotely. Quote, the medical community is usually the last to change on things like this, unquote, she says, but, quote, we got good at figuring out who the forward-looking providers were. Now, there's a group of about 9 or 10 of them that are licensed in 20 different states, unquote. For clinic-based care, that ratio would be impossibly restrictive, but, quote, all it takes is one provider in the state to serve that whole state, unquote, she says. Quote, that's a true telemedicine model, unquote. This week, in the wake of the leaked Supreme Court decision, Wells is testing for kinks in the process with her bottle of beans. Are there unexpected costs that could create a financial barrier? Do certain carriers ask questions that an abortion seeker might not be able to answer honestly, or notice the rattling beans and stop the mail forwarding because they think it's prescription? Quote, we do all that testing so we can report to people. Here's what we did. Here's what you need to know about, so that they cannot do this successfully when they're in a time of crisis, or so that they can do it successfully when they're in a time of crisis, unquote, says Wells. The trick for Plan C is to keep these workarounds just within the bounds of legality. But the borders are almost always murky, and the legal landscape is bound to become less predictable if Roe is overturned this summer. Quote, we're in uncharted territory, unquote, says Farah Diaz-Tello, senior counsel for the Reproductive Justice Group, If, When, and How. Right now, virtually all abortion restrictions target the abortion provider, not the person ending a pregnancy, and only South Carolina, Oklahoma, and Nevada criminalize self-administered abortion. That means it's very rare for someone to be charged under criminal abortion laws, says Diaz-Tello. Quote, but you can't necessarily just say, oh, well, there's no criminal ban on self-managed abortion in my state, so I'm safe. There's virtually no correlation between those states and where investigations and prosecutions happen, unquote. Instead, Diaz, in many states, the consequences of self-administering an abortion is up to, quote, the prosecutorial imagination, unquote. People are usually targeted by prosecutors with laws on the periphery of their pregnancy outcomes for trying to bury or flush fetal remains, where they're charged with improper disposal of human remains or abuse of a corpse. Or in some states, quote, we see people charged with things like concealment of a birth, laws that were passed in the 1800s called concealment of a bastard child, that were intended to punish people who gave birth out of wedlock, unquote. Without the constitutional protections of Roe, conservative prosecutors' imaginations are likely to be emboldened. Quote, that poses its own hazards and chilling effects, unquote, says Diaz-Tello. Quote, whether or not they manage to get a charge to stick, that's going to have a devastating effect on a person's life, just being arrested, having their mug shot in the news, unquote. At least 20 states have already proposed bills that would specifically ban at-home abortion pills, like Tennessee's ban that was signed just this week and goes into effect at the top of next year. And according to the Guttmacher Institute, 22 states will be under an abortion ban the moment Roe is overturned. And losing Roe also opens the door for restrictions that target abortion seekers rather than just providers. At its most extreme, post-Roe restrictions could try to establish, quote, fetal personhood, unquote, like Louisiana's newest bill, which would classify abortion as murder. Legal groups like If, When, How can help inform people of their individual risk when they're trying to get access to abortion pills, but as the landscape changes, quote, it has to be up to individuals to decide what level of risk they can tolerate, unquote, says Diaz. Quote, based on their social location, their family circumstances, whether they are a part of a group that experiences marginalization in our country because of poverty, because of race, all these other things that make people more susceptible to surveillance and criminalization in U.S. society, unquote. They're calculations that are somewhat new to reproductive health care in the United States, she says, but are, quote, actually very familiar to other groups of people in the U.S. who are used to being under the microscope. People who use drugs, sex workers, LGBTQ communities, people who have already been classified that see it as criminalizable, unquote. But a decade of groundwork by abortion access advocates has established a support network both for those navigating abortion restrictions now and those who will in a post-Roe America. Quote, even people who are self-managing are not alone, and they can be surrounded by systems of care and support, unquote, says Diaz. And as restrictions expand, the tools to get around them will keep evolving. Quote, we like a creative challenge, unquote, says Wells. It's not perfect, obviously. Perfect would be low cost or affordable, safe, effective legal care in all 50 states, but we know that's not a reality, and so we offer up alternate routes of access as a way to help mitigate the damage, unquote. They're a fucking idiot, these people. Now hear me out. Why am I saying that? They just open their fly to everybody now, and so now we know, if they ever overturn Roe v. Wade, the Republicans are going to zero in on mail now because they opened their friggin' fly and told everybody how they're going to sneak abortion pills to people. What an idiot. I mean, why do we live in a society where people don't realize that everything they say, they do, and everything is being monitored? Jesus! The January 6th, how is it that so many people have been arrested so far from the January 6th riot? Because there were cameras everywhere. Okay, the FBI ID'd all these people. They know where they live. They got their name, their face. So, and here they're talking about this is what we're going to do if they put a barrier between you and abortion. We're going to mail pills to you. Oh, geez, now they can't get around this now because now everybody knows about it. Thank you. The women should be freaking mad as hell at this group of people here that's, you know, that just been interviewed by Rolling Stone putting this out there. So now, that's why I say these people are idiots, okay? It's obviously run by a bunch of young people because they don't know that everything they say is immediately thrust into the internet, and now everybody in the country knows about it. So that means if they try some way to sneak somebody an abortion pill, it's most likely now going to be intercepted because they'll know. They'll be looking for it. They'll find a way to find this stuff, okay? Your mail isn't completely protected, as it were. We all know this. And the fact that people are going to have to do this in this country here in order to give women the right to be able to do an abortion at home or whatever, is really sad that it's come to this. And at some point, if this happens, we're going to regret this many years down the road, that we weren't at this moment taking advantage of history to stand up against it, to do something to protect Roe v. Wade, to prevent this debacle here, this shame debacle, from being a reality for women. You know, I feel like this is really ridiculous. I mean, what do we have to do? We're gonna have to airdrop pills as we fly over these states now. You know, I mean, where do we say enough is enough? Okay, you guys, this is ridiculous. We're not going to start airdropping abortion pills to people on the ground who need them. Okay, you're either gonna let us have what we want, or we're gonna shut you down. The whole state's gonna get shut down. Period. Okay, you either play by the rules of what this country was founded on, or you're out. You're gone. You know, if you don't want to secede, we will secede you, okay? The federal government will close you out. You're going to be on your own, and anybody who wants to get out of that state is free to come to the other side and set up shop or set a home up out of that fucking place. But we're not going to shelter, confederacies or anything like that in this country, okay? We fought a civil war about that. We're not going to go through that again. We're just going to close you out. You're going to become your own little world down there, and don't come crying to the federal government when some disaster hits your state. Because a lot of these states are in the South where there's tornadoes and stuff like that. You're going to have to deal with that on your own. That's it. You're out. That's why I say, if they want to play this game to its end, then we will make them come to its end in a way they don't want, which means they are out. They are excluded. A star is removed from the flag, or how many stars, 18 states, 18 stars are going to be taken off the flag, okay? You're going to have to consider yourself your own little country, whoever governor you got, you're going to have to live with. So when they see an exodus of people leaving their state because they don't want to live under these draconian laws that these fuckers are putting in place down there, they're going to say, hey, we can't let all these people, hey, that's your fault. You didn't think about this the long way. You thought about immediate gains by using this as a political discussion to win seats. This is the fallout for doing something like that. This is what happens when you take that road, okay, for personal gain. You have to understand that when you say things, when you're a politician, there are consequences to what you say, what comes out of your mouth. People hear what you say, okay? And what happens is, if you get your way, there's going to be consequences again there. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene that like to go around acting so, innocent when she was part of the January 6th incitement, okay? She's a friggin' traitor to the country, but yet, she gets to stay. Okay, that's a sign right there of a state where the judge okayed that, of a state that should not even be part of the United States anymore, okay? Because they just green-lit, it's okay to go and fight against your government in the worst way possible, to encourage a riot, to become a terrorist, okay? That's what they're saying is okay. so they shouldn't even be part of the United States. I mean, logically, you know, if it's okay, if the judge thinks that's okay, then hey, look, you know, other states that feel it's okay for that, you know, axe them out too, because we don't need them, and we really ought to use the borders that these states sit in as barriers to build walls around. Okay, Trump should build walls around these states and keep these people in there. Okay, so they're not allowed to come out and infest and stain the rest of what's left of America. Jesus. You know, I feel like, you know, as the country is further pulling itself apart, as we are being politicized and polarized by government, okay, the day is coming really soon that people are going to start shouting from the mountaintops, secession. They want to leave, okay, because they can't get their way, that the government's always running interference or something in front of their Bible. They're going to scream that. And I say when that day happens, we ought to celebrate, because then we get to pick and choose the states that can stay and the ones that can leave. Because at the end, once we filter the fat off of the country, the rest of America that believes in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, people, you know, that's going to be a strong nation. Okay, it's going to be filled with people who believe in that. Okay, and we can prosper as a nation and not have to worry about being held back by the throat from people on the right who want to live in the 1800s. Okay, that part of America can devolve into that if that's what they want. The rest of us can move ahead forward with the rest of the world and do what we have to do to become relevant in the global society that we are. Okay, that part of America over there can stay hidden, you know, in its own little thing, and the rest of the world can just shun them, whatever the hell they want, and let them be the version of Iraq that exists on the other side of the world. We can have our own Iraq right here on this continent. So anyway. That's all I'm going to talk about for today. So I hope everybody has a great rest of the weekend and upcoming week. And please subscribe and comment. And please keep your ears open to COVID news, especially those of us in Maine, because right now we are leading the country in infection rates right now. And so we need to be more vigilant here in this state. To wear our masks again, because a lot of people still are not wearing masks, even though they're hearing on the news that there's more people being thrown in the hospital because they're sick and or dying from COVID. And so we need to get people back into wearing the mask, even though they don't want to, because the weather's getting nice here, summer's on the way, people want to go traveling, and you know, we just gotta say, look, you can have all that, but you've got to be safe. You know, don't be dumb. So I'll talk to you again later. Take care, everybody.